All right, I think we're going to get started. It's about 10 o'clock. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Peter Zanoni, the City Manager for the City of Corpus Christi, and this is our weekly briefing to the community on progress in restoring Mud Bridge. And so I'm going to do some introductory comments, and then our Public Works Director, Ernesto De La Garza, will give more specifics for the community. We do appreciate the media covering this. One of our key focal areas at City Hall is transparency and openness to the community. And while we're covering this live on our social media networks, we do appreciate the media getting the word out to the community as well. We know that this bridge restoration project is very important for a lot of folks who live on Flower Bluff or the island, or who use it to get to and from work. We know there's a lot of educational institutions and employment centers in the nearby area, and the bridge is critical to that path of travel. So our goal is to communicate today to the community on our progress, but our other goal is to get the bridge restored and back open to the community. We want to try to be a little bit clearer today in our message to the community, and I'm going to focus on that this morning. And hopefully we can clear up any confusion that may have existed over the last week or so, namely that the city didn't want to spend dollars to get the bridge opened, and it may be years before this path of travel, this transportation network is restored. So today we want to make clear that we are interested. Our primary goal is to get the bridge reopened. That's goal number one. Get the bridge reopened, get the transportation network here on Yorktown back in service to the community. We did make some reference points in the last couple of weeks so we could be transparent and open with the community that one of our concepts we were working with is that there could have been a point where to restore the bridge may have been very, very expensive. And we didn't make any decision, but we wanted to put it out there that with the council's input, the community's input, would it be a good decision to overinvest taxpayer dollars to restore the bridge if it was so far gone that it would be a very expensive proposition. But today, we're happy to report that that kind of decision point is passed because we have more information now today that we've gained in the last week, which is leading us to believe it will not be cost prohibitive to restore the bridge. So that's great news for those that use this bridge. And that decision point or that concept point was in our working concepts just so that we could be mindful of taxpayer monies. That's something we're very focused on at City Hall, is making sure we're making wise investments using taxpayer dollars. We don't want to be frivolous and wasteful with the taxpayer monies. So with that concept, with that kind of opening remark, let me just kind of frame the conversation, and then we're going to have Ernesto give more detail. So there's three things that we have been talking about to the community when it comes to Mud Bridge. One is restoring the embankments, the underneath of the bridge on both sides, and the Flower Bluff side, and then on the Yorktown side that I'm facing right now. That restoration work, even through our conversations last week, was actually happening, and tremendous progress has been made, and we want to thank our partners who are here with us this morning. Anderson Columbia for the diligence. They're a strong partner in the city in our road restoration work. They also do bridge work. They're actually doing the bridge at the island right now, the Exchange Bridge on Park Road 22. And so they were a natural call to have them help us in this bridge restoration. And they've been doing tremendous work, working through the holidays and working through some pretty extreme weather. Last week they were working here as well. They were not, contrary to some reports, trying to determine what the price points were. They're actually working on restoring the embankments. And so Ernesto will give us a timeline. It's within the next 2 weeks, I believe, that the embankment restoration, which was the cause of the closure initially, will be complete. And so yesterday you may have seen on our social media page, our Facebook page, or our city website page, I should say, some video, and I know Flow East also shared that video that showed some of the embankment restoration work. You can see boulders and form work is there, and wire mesh. That's all for what they call shotcrete pouring, which is a form of concrete, and that will shore up the embankment. So that work is looking great. It's well underway and nearly complete. So that's step number one. Step number two is what we discovered along the way is that the bridge is in worse shape than what we thought. And so there's about 55 pylons or columns that hold the bridge up across the waterway. And of those 55, 22 are extremely compromised, and 4 of them are real bad. So meaning the concrete is chipped off or is eroded off, and in some instances we're down to the rebar. However, we have done a report through our consultant, Anderson Columbia, and we have had TxDOT review the findings and the approach to restore. Both Anderson Columbia and their consultant, Fries and Nichols, the engineer of record, and TxDOT are confident that a restoration approach is safe. We can do it. It will result in a safe bridge. And so the 22 of the 55 pylons then need to be restored. That's step 2. And that's going to take a little bit of time. That's not something that you get done in a few weeks like we have on the embankments. And Ernesto will give us the timeline on that, but it's several months still. So we've gone from 3 days to 30 days to maybe 3 months is what's going to happen here with the bridge. But the good news is it's going to get back open within that time frame. So step 2 then, remember step 1 was the embankment. Step 2 is the pylons. 22 of them need to be restored. It's pretty manual intensive labor. We're going to have to use barges to float in the water and then chip away some of the concrete and get down to the rebar, in some cases replace it, and then form it back up for security. So that's step 2 in the bridge restoration. And then step 3 is a brand new bridge, and that's in the long-term future. But the good news is even during the Christmas break, Ernesto and Neiman Young, our assistant city manager, met with TxDOT right during the Christmas break. And TxDOT agreed to move the funding up for the restoration or the reconstruction of the bridge from a 2026 start to a 2025 start, which is good. So they moved it up a year. So that means in 2025, funding will now become available for the design, the engineering work that has to take place, the environmental work, a relocation of utilities, and then a complete reconstruction of the bridge, a $20 million project. That's several years from now, and it'll take several years to complete. Probably in 2028 or so, a brand new bridge will be in front of me. But in the meantime, we'll have the restored bridge that we're working on now. That third message point is just to say that a brand new bridge is coming. I have seen some social media communication about we're going to be improving Yorktown Road behind me here. It's in our bond program. The voters approved a $20 million widening and redo of Yorktown. But some of the commentators said, well, that's kind of foolish if you're going to narrow it down to this 2-lane bridge in front of me. But TxDOT's going to help us fund the expansion and really a brand new bridge. But in the meantime, we'll have the restored bridge to use. So that's message point number 3. So those are my 3 opening comments for today. Ernesto De La Garza, our Public Works Director, and we'll give you, the community, more information then. I do want to thank Councilman Smith for being a strong advocate still, even in his last days here at City Council, for his community that he loves and has worked so hard for. He personally was on a barge inspecting the bridge last week just to make sure he better understood it. And then incoming Councilman Dan Suckley, who will represent City Council District 4, also has been engaged. I've been communicating with him on our progress. He, like Councilman Smith, is very much concerned for the community and wants to make sure that this bridge gets reopened and that it remains safe for the community. So thank you, both council members. That concludes my comments for this morning. I'll be here for questions after Ernesto provides us more precise details on the restoration. So Ernesto?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Ernesto De La Garza, Director of Public Works. So since December 12, as we mentioned before, we've had, I think it was, let me see here real quick, 12 working days. So even though it was December 12, we've physically done work for 12 days. And since then, our contractors made a lot of progress, specifically to the channel bank work, as we mentioned earlier. That is going to be done on the east side today, and then of course beginning that work on the west side. So there's been a lot of progress, and we really thank the contractors for their expedited work. Also on the timelines, we do have a better idea now with our subcontractor giving us their proposal for the work needed on the piles and the bank caps. So that's good information. I think before we were kind of just trying to figure out, how to approach this work because it was an emergency declaration, and not having the contractors lined up like you would if it was a design, bid, build type of scenario. But now that we have all that lined up, we do have a better idea of the time frame. So, as the city manager had mentioned, we went from 3 days to 30 days, and then now extending that time frame, we do have a better idea of what that work is going to entail, and then also trying to figure out a cost. So we do have that also in our analysis. In addition to that, we've also had discussions with TxDOT. I've talked to TxDOT yesterday. They did give us feedback from their report analysis with Bridge Division, and they are confident that our approach is a good approach to ensure safety once we do open up the bridge to traffic. So that's a good feedback from the Bridge Division. And then our plan is to plan the inspection after our work is completed, to have TxDOT do a follow-up inspection, which was already scheduled for 2023 for the 2-year inspection. So we'll coordinate that once our work is completed, and then that should finalize the process for getting this bridge back on track, and then also having our structural engineer finalize those recommendations once we finish our work. So that time frame, we're looking at about 70 days was the estimated time frame. Again, we do have the bent caps and that we also are looking at. That's what sits on top of the columns, and those ones will require repair as well, but not as major repairs as the pilings are going to require. But that's what's included in the time frame. So when we finish the channel bank work and we mobilize our subcontractor out here, that time frame will begin, and that should give us about a 70-day time frame. Again, that's all dependent upon accessibility and the ability to get the work done underneath the bridge with the tides and all that. But since they're working on barges, we're hoping that will not really impact that time frame. And so with the city manager's approval of that process, and then moving forward, we will expedite the work begin date for that subcontractor to get started, and then mobilize and then start that time frame, and then we can hopefully get the bridge open sooner than later. But there is a full-blown commitment from our contractor to expedite the work as much as they can, and provide as many resources as is needed to open the bridge as soon as safely as possible. With that, again, we'd like to thank you all for your patience in the public and understanding that we do consider this bridge being closed as a major goal, to open it up as soon as possible. So again, thank you very much for your support. Thank you.
And Joe, just before we conclude here, see if there's any questions. The time frame, we're looking at is probably into March before it's open, right, Ernesto? As Ernesto just said, the embankment work's a couple of weeks out, probably by the end of next week. Once that's done, then the column work will begin, or maybe even before that's done, the column work, the bringing in of the barges and the mobilization, at least the planning work will begin. So if we say 2 weeks from now, then the 70-day begins. That's in mid-January. So put 2 to 3 months on top of that. That's February, March, right? Mid-March. So the bridge is going to be closed for a couple more months, but we want to reiterate we're not doing it just for, the heck of it, but it's because half of the columns are extremely corroded, and need restoration work. The embankment work's almost done. That was the initial cause of the closing of the bridge. The embankments caused washout, which caused a sinkhole. But when we got under there and looked closer, we realized that we have bigger problems, and that being the columns that hold up the bridge. It's about 1/10 of a mile of a span. Those need restorations. It's not safe. So that work is going to take at least 70 days, but it could be longer because of tidal influences that happen here, the weather. We could have another extreme weather event. We probably will. So we're talking, March. We don't have the exact timeline because this information is just in from yesterday. The fact that, yes, we can do it, and yes, our contractor, Anderson Columbia, has the resources to do it. That 70-day timeline is an initial estimate. So we just want to put that out there. That's going to be a little bit of time, but we're diligently working. Work continues even right now. Work is happening. We're investing city taxpayer dollar. The restoration work, by the way, is in the millions. It's going to be several million. And we're going to use our stormwater fee most likely to cover the cost. That's a reminder to the community that having that independent stormwater fee is good because it gives us financial resources to address stormwater and bridge infrastructure that there is a lot of in this city. So we want to applaud the community for embracing that revenue stream, and for this city council and Mayor Guajardo for having the ability to pass that in 2 budgets ago. Conversations with the budget development process. So Ernie, is that pretty much it, you think? Okay. We do have a question from our Chris Six outlet.
Yes. Peter, Chris Six News has reviewed the 5 last inspection reports on this bridge. And clearly, there were indications that there were very serious issues with this bridge. The city has addressed that. The city has said, I think we dropped the ball. I think the city has been transparent about that. What about the other 68 bridges that the city is responsible for? How many other serious issues do the other bridges in the city have? Right.
Yeah. So in case you couldn't hear, especially for our social media outlets, there's 2 questions. Well, there's two issues in the media request. One is what happened to the reports that were done by TxDOT over the years? Why didn't the city do anything about what was in the reports? And then secondly, what about the other 67 bridges? We have a total of 68 bridges. What's the status of those? So first of all, I want to make clear that nobody dropped the ball in the city because there was nobody to focus on bridges in the city. That analogy of dropping the ball, you have to have a team or somebody around. But clearly the city didn't have a well-organized public works department, and in particular a stormwater unit, until recently, until the last 3 years. So fortunately, we've been able to reorganize and recreate and develop a public works department that has an independent stormwater division, and that's the first in decades in the city. And that is still coming together. It's not even 3 years old yet. So that's why we're focused on moving forward. We need a strong public works department. We need strong protocols, strong standard operating procedures, so that what has happened here doesn't happen again. And clearly we didn't have that as a city. We know that. I am focused on, as the city manager, as the team, on moving forward, though. We can say in the past how we want, but we're really focused on moving forward. So what we do have today is a public works department. If you look at an organizational chart 4 years ago, there was none. And that just doesn't come on overnight. It takes time for an organization to develop those protocols and those standard operating procedures and so on. So the message is we have it now. We're moving forward. This restoration work is happening quicker because of having a department now. But the second part of that question is, what about the 67 other bridges? As soon as this incident happened, Ernesto instructed his assistant director over stormwater to start looking at those 67 other bridges, start looking at them, even though we had been looking at them, to rapidly start looking at them, or put them all on a fast track review. That work's underway, and we'll have an update on it soon. Based on the initial review, though, there's nothing as significant as what we see here and those 67 other bridges. The spans aren't as significant as this one, nor is the traffic loads as significant. And they're probably in better shape, or they are in better shape. But we'll have a report on that to the city council and the community as well. So the short of the answer on that second part is, for weeks now, we've been focusing our energy in a short amount of time rather than a longer span of time on the 67 other bridges to make sure we understand the condition of them.
Right. I mean, respectfully, to not have anybody looking at bridges, right, over the past several decades,
right,
is an issue.
Agreed. Yeah, the statement was the fact that nobody was looking at bridges, that's an issue, isn't it? Yes, it is. So for the eighth largest city in Texas that's surrounded by water, more than ever, it's an issue. That's why we created the Public Works Department. That's why we worked hard to give City Council choices and options to create an independent stormwater fee that funds bridges and stormwater systems. The city didn't have it. It's maybe hard to believe today, but we didn't have it. But now we do. And we have a mayor and we have a city council that's committed to infrastructure. And that's proven by the fact that they approved for the first time in 3 decades an independent stormwater fee, that they hired a city manager who's focused on developing a strong professional team, and that we have systems in place to address our infrastructure. If you think of put roads in particular, forget about bridges, this city council in the past 3 years in their budgets have approved $336 million for street reconstruction. So streets, bridges is not too far off from streets. It's a top priority of this city council and this team that's working with me to keep infrastructure in the 8th largest city the top priority for the community, so that what we see today doesn't happen again. But it's going to take some time. We know that erasing decades of neglect doesn't happen in days. It takes time. Right. Did we have some more media questions?
I do.
Okay. Okay.
You mentioned that TxDOT has signed off on your plan.
Right.
But I am curious, who is ultimately the regulatory authority on these types of bridges? So in some of the inspection reports, TxDOT says these items need to be fixed, but then we know that they weren't fixed because it became an emergency item, right? So ultimately, who kind of oversees the city to make sure that things are getting fixed when they're inspected and then they're not fixed?
Right. Okay. I'm going to have Ernesto answer that just so I don't give a wrong answer. But the question was for the viewing public on our social media networks is, while TxDOT inspects the bridges and gives us recommendations, who's the oversight authority to make sure they get done? Is that TxDOT or is that the city? Yeah.
All right, so to answer your question, we are the owner of the bridge. So the City of Corpus Christi, as the owners, are the ones responsible for making ultimate decisions on maintenance of the bridge, and then the work that goes into those bridges. The process is that the Texas Department of Transportation inspects all bridge class structures in Texas. Because that expertise is only within their purview, they're the ones that have the federal funds to handle that workload. Usually the bridge class or the bridge class classification is anything that's longer than a 20-foot span. So even box culverts are considered bridges if they span longer than 20 feet. That being the case, the process should be, if TxDOT has an inspection done and they see something that's critical where the bridge needs to be closed, then when they submit that report to the city or the owner, and this is happening everywhere across the state of Texas, they're gonna put something in writing to say, hey, this is critical. We're letting you know this is critical and it needs to be addressed. And that's where TxDOT's responsibility stops, and then the owner's responsibility begins. From what I have reviewed, we don't have anything like that at the city where TxDOT has raised an alarm to say, hey, this bridge needs to be closed immediately as a result of any inspection that we have in our books. So we're still in the process of that review, but so far that hasn't come across our desk. So that being said, to answer your question, we are responsible, and as the city manager just explained, programmatically speaking, the city wasn't set up to take that and then act on it in terms of a maintenance program. So now we have that in the works to develop that maintenance program, and then also in communication with TxDOT to make sure that, as your concern has addressed, is specifically saying, is there a problem that may exist that we don't know about on an existing one of those 67 bridges? And so right now we haven't come across anything like that. Now to continue though, there is maintenance that should be taking place that probably has not been taking place to slow the aging or the progression of a bridge that's either underwater or under load. And so now we're in the process of developing that program for maintenance. So that's where we are at. And then in communication with TxDOT for, say, for example, this bridge, they're going to come and inspect it as part of their process because it's still a statewide bridge. They have to inspect, and it's still in service. So after we're done with our work, they're going to perform that inspection as part of their schedule. And then we're confident that all these additional repairs are only going to make the score better. And then so essentially you're going to have a better bridge that's going to get reconstructed in 25, but we're doing that for ensuring safety. right? That's what we're doing based off of what we've evaluated under the bridge. So we just want to make sure that it's safe, and we're never going to question that. And that's how our approach has always been. And so I don't know if that answers your questions as far as our process and the program that we're developing to ensure maintenance moving on.
It does. Your maintenance program will be developed by when?
Oh, so it's currently being developed. So I mean,
When will it be ready?
well, to say a finished program, let me see. So we're looking at about a 3-month time frame to bring on board an engineering consultant who can read these reports and make decisions on repair needed or repair not needed. That's kind of what led to a lot of our questions to begin with, and also led to us being very I guess methodical about our approach, is making sure that we were doing the right thing so that when we do open traffic, it's a safe bridge. And so
That's not my question.
yeah, but I'm working to your answer. Is when we get in 3 months, that's a time frame to hire the inspector that's needed to answer our questions, because right now we don't have that expertise in house. So even if we look at these inspection reports and they speak to bridge lingo, if that's a good term, we have to have the understanding on our side, which nobody in the city has that expertise. To say, I know systematically how a bridge functions structurally, and we can make these decisions on, yes, that pile needs repair, or no, that pile doesn't need repair. Because I've mentioned it before, but when I was at TxDOT has the expertise to look at a pile, and to any normal person would say that thing needs to be replaced. TxDOT will say, yeah, it's fine. You just keep on driving on it, because we have the expertise to say this will last the next, so many years beyond this point. They have that expertise. We have to hire that expertise. So step 1 of our program is to bring in a consultant to make that. That's going to be about a 3-month time frame. Once we have that, it's really just a matter of getting contracts and plan sets together to have maintenance projects just like you see here, but they're more scripted, right? Because we're going to have design plans, then we go to bid, and then we go to construction, but they're going to be maintenance type contracts. And so that's going to be, within the year that process starts. Right, yes, sir, 24 budget is what we're looking at. So,
Yeah.
is that good?
Just to conclude on that, Ernesto did a great job, but this probably the first real program will come into our 2024 budget that begins next October. So in these coming months and this year, as Ernesto gets the information, there'll be a prioritization, because it's going to come down to money. We don't have all the money in the world, so there'll be a prioritization process. We'll say this is what we can do beginning October 1 in the FY then 24 budget and the subsequent budgets. So, okay, those are 2 or 3, 4 great questions. Any other questions from the media? Okay, we want to again thank the media and our own city team for being here to record this and bring this live to the community. From the city side, we are recording this in total, and it will be downloaded to the city website that has been set up specifically to give the community at any time access to information on what's happening here in Mud Bridge. So this will be yet another video that'll be on that website that you can review if you weren't able to watch today. And with that, we're going to close out. Again, thank you. And we'll be back either here or at City Hall next week, Wednesday at 10 o'clock. Thank you.